we can't afford it. It's just too expensive. It's too expensive. It's too expensive a mistake to sit there in your bed in the same pattern that you were in like 2 years ago. You can't afford it. 2 years ago, you were probably in high school like me or something. We didn't have anything to do. We could afford to wallow around, you know, but now this is like real life. This is real life. We can't afford it. You know, I mean, you can wallow about for a little bit because it's human experience, but get out of it, you know? Snap out of it. So this is the most ambitious video I've ever made, meaning that I actually have a little bit of a script going on and I'm not just yapping. So yeah, and it also encapsulates so many points. It's kind of a megalith of a video. And I wanted to start by why I'm making the video. Yes, I'm reading the notes. Listen, guys, it's the only way that we can be straight, alright? Alright. So, today in the metro station, while I was going down the metro, I saw a guy who was really kind of dizzy, like he was almost going to pass out. I think he had low blood sugar or something like that. And you know, the people around him were trying to convince him to not go on the metro because he can't go on the metro, because if he went on the metro it would make his situation even worse. And he was worrying about reaching his job on time, and there were people, you know, trying to help him up. The employees at the metro station, they brought a wheelchair and everything, and they tried to, like, you know, wheel him out, trying to convince him to just rest before he goes on his journey. And you know, I was really saddened. I was really sad. Like, even recounting it now, I feel a little bit teary-eyed because I didn't have anything to help. I was really sad. Like, I didn't have a water bottle, I didn't have anything sugary, and I couldn't, like, help him in his situation. That made me really sad. The other reason that I felt really sad was because, I mean, I was in perfect health. I was in perfect health, you know, and not only that, I didn't have to rush to my job. And if I had such a situation, because I go to university, if I had such a situation, I could just explain to my professor, like, hi, I was going to pass out, and then she would be understanding and she would accept it, and there would be no big deal. So I was really saddened with the contrast in our lively situations. And what saddens me even more, on top of the contrast between my situation and his, because really I can't help the situation that I'm in, you know, that's the privileged position that I was in comparison to his. And what I can do in that situation and that privilege is make sure that I can go even further, that I can succeed, and that I can get enough money to take care of myself and to potentially give back. Not that it's my duty to give back, but that it would be a nice thing to do. And that kind of made me really sad, and because with all of my privilege, this is the saddening part, the really saddening part. With all of my privilege, I was still handicapping my own success. I'm set up for success, but I'm handicapping my own self. And this isn't just because I'm privileged. There are people who have come from so much worse, so much lesser than you and I have, because now both of us have iPhones, both of us have phones or like laptops, something to watch this on, and we have the comfort and time to sit here and discuss this. There are people that don't have the time to do this. There are people that are rushing from one thing to another, and they can't sit down and think about how to improve their lives, you know, because they're in such a rush and they can't help it really. But there are people that were like that, you know, and they kind of became better. There were people that literally had to sleep in cars, you know, maybe that's you too, I don't know. And they kind of, even with all of that, they worked to a position that I'm not in now, you know. I'm thinking like Oprah, I think, what's her name, Ice Spice, yeah, that girl. I think she was sleeping in a car before she kind of blew up overnight. Caliucci's as well. She was sleeping in a car because she was kicked out. Before now, they're all three of them are like positions that you and I aren't in. Again, I don't know about you, but like me specifically, I'm not in that position. And they came from so much worse, you know. And we come from a point of privilege. So for us to handicap our own success by falling into our own old patterns and not showing up for our futures, despite us being able to and making time for it, I mean, that is really saddening, you know? And there's a reason for this. There's a reason for this. And I believe my reason for this could also be the reason that you're struggling with, which is that there's something draining us. There's something that's kind of pulling us back to our older patterns. Mostly it is a battle between the self and your future self, your current self and your desires, what the immediate gratification of, like, I don't know, a Snickers bar versus like your dream body or something like that. That's kind of a huge part of the struggle. But aside from that struggle, there's another struggle. There's the struggle of being drained, you know. Lately, these weeks, I've been sleeping like crazy. I can't wake up. Like, I just keep sleeping and sleeping. Even as I was writing the script down, I kept yawning. I kept having like a bit of a fog in my head, and it was kind of hard for me to connect dots because I was just struggling because I was so drained, you know. And being drained can like literally cripple your own success, you know. It can cripple all aspects of your life, you know. On my midterm lately, I had some mistakes that were completely avoidable if I just slept well. And the thing is, I slept for more than 8 hours, and even then I was still so tired. I was so mind-blowingly tired. There was just something on my chest just draining me, and it was absolutely horrible. And I made some mistakes that I could have not made, and I could have aced the test completely. But I didn't because I crippled my own success. Okay, so I mentioned sleeping a lot, and that's a symptom of having your energy drained. I will also like to add a point that this is not just, you know, hooba gooba manifestation voodoo witch stuff. No, I mean like energy, like like as in your stamina, your time, your mental stamina to like be able to like handle your life, you know. Like those things I kind of apply a blanket term, which is energy, because it is also spiritual energy, but in addition to that, it's the mental energy, it's the time, your own time, and all aspects of yourself that you can give. Money as well, that can also count as an energy. It's just a blanket term for like all of those aspects, right? So your drained energy, we mentioned that one of the symptoms is sleeping a lot. Another is overeating. In addition to sleeping a lot, I've also noticed that I've been getting better now, but I used to like kind of overeat for like no reason, just because I was feeling very hollow and drained and sad. So I was just like constantly snacking, you know, and it's no good. Another symptom we also mentioned is the fog-like state of mind. It's where you're trying hard to figure something out, whether it's a puzzle or you're trying to study or you're trying to write something or read something, and it's just there's like this fog in your head, and it actually physically hurts to connect dots in your head. Like it's like exhausting to do so. And this is a symptom of having your energy drained. And this is the biggest one. This one, like when I read it, when I wrote this down, like I felt really, like I felt that emotion, and I felt so saddened and low. It was going to bed feeling like you haven't accomplished anything. That nagging sensation that you haven't realized your purpose, that you haven't worked towards your purpose today. Landon, which is he's Liz's fiance, he had a video recently on, he called it Thank You God, and it had a bunch of important lessons. And he mentioned that his definition of a successful person, which was a new one that I haven't come across and I really liked, it was that someone that wakes up, has a plan, has a long-term plan and a short-term plan for today, and accomplishes some of that plan and actually works towards their goals. And when that person goes to bed at night, they think, wow, I have done everything in my possible power to reach this goal. And they sleep comfortably. And I've experienced that as well, where I've slept comfortably because I put in as much effort as I could towards my goal, which is writing. And I wrote chapters after chapters, and I slept peacefully because that was my purpose. And nowadays I just kind of have this nagging sensation because I haven't been like typing. I've finished my novel, by the way. It's just a bunch of editing, like a second round of edits, because it's so kind of difficult, and I've been so drained, like I just didn't know how to approach it, and I haven't been doing the work. This isn't about me. I was just giving you an example. And so like when you don't accomplish, when you don't work towards your goals, like it just feels like you haven't done anything today, and it feels like crap. And that is a symptom of being drained. And final point is, you can't afford to be in this state. You can't afford to be drained. Like that poor guy, he had a job to go to. He can't afford to be sick, and that's something he has no voluntary control over, really. But you and I, we have control over our drained state. We have control over our mental state, at least better control, And so there's just no excuse for us to be like this, because we can't afford it. We can't afford it. If you're a young adult right now, like me, I'm 19. Well, that rhymed, that's nice. We can't afford to struggle right now. We can't afford to struggle mentally. We can't struggle mentally. I'm not saying we can't, we're human, but we can't afford to fall back into patterns, because there's so much that we have to do. There's so much that we can do, and there's so much that we will do, but we're not there yet, and we can't afford it. It's just too expensive. It's too expensive. It's too expensive a mistake to sit there in your bed in the same pattern that you were in like 2 years ago. You can't afford it. 2 years ago, you were probably in high school like me or something. We didn't have anything to do. We could afford to wallow around, but now this is like real life. This is real life. We can't afford it. I mean, you can wallow about for a little bit because it's human experience, but get out of it, So we've established why we can't afford to lose our energy and how it presents itself. Now I want to talk about like the reasons that your energy drains, the energy drainers, if you'd like. Now I have the main list is going to be energy drainers for both genders, men and women, okay? Because there's a lot of shared energy drainers, but I will also go into a different section where I start talking about the specific kind of gendered things. And unfortunately for the men part, I'm not a man. So I don't have the exact details. I'm just going off of what I understand from men, because I've been told that in my novel, I hate talking about my novel, because I have a male character there, and the reason I bring this up is because he's also unhealthy. He's kind of a menace to society, and when I brought my work to another man, like a real man, he was like, oh, he's so realistic. It's so realistic that I disturbed him. Like, I disturbed his mental framework because of how realistic this horrible man was, I bring this up to give some credit to the section where I will talk about energy drainers for men, because it's not like I don't have experience necessarily. It's just that I'm not a man, so I'm not like, take my things with a grain of salt, but also remember that I've written a very realistic man, and I have a lot of experience with writing unhealthy relationships and in my poetry and in my literature. And that's just as a little side note, which helps us to get into our first point for energy drainers for both, which is romantic relationships that are unhealthy, non-committal, and especially pursued in an unbuilt state. I'll talk about this more from like both genders' perspective. In a heterosexual relationship is what I'm talking about personally, because that's my personal experience. So what do I mean by unhealthy? Romantic relationships that are unhealthy. I mean toxic relationships. I mean relationships that have you arguing more. I also mean, I'm sorry, it's called having an iPhone and having no storage at any given moment. And that's why my video keeps cutting. Okay. So I was explaining what unhealthy relationships are, and what unhealthy relationships are relationships that you always feel like you're in an argument constantly. And another thing is when you're constantly thinking about the person outside of interacting with them. That's not necessarily unhealthy between you both, you know. Maybe the person's not doing anything wrong, but it's just about your own attachment to that person and how you keep thinking about them like all the time. And it clouds your brain, it clouds your attention, and you feel like all your energy is being poured into this person instead of like having a healthy boundary. And if the person isn't doing anything negative, this is a more of a you fixing yourself problem. And how do you fix that? I don't know. I'm still struggling with that myself. And I find for me, which is about the unbuilt state, which I mentioned, is as well as the non-committal. But I'll explain the unbuilt state because that one deserves more explanation. It's harder to understand. The unbuilt state is a state of being in which you are not fully realized. You have certain goals or you don't. And if you have certain goals in mind, lifelong goals, and you've only accomplished one or two, you're not in a built state. You're in a state of building in the present sense. And in the present sense, when you're building, it requires so much energy, so much time, so much focus that it's hard for you to form a healthy relationship with a person and give them the time that that relationship needs, because relationships, proper relationships, require a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of focus. And that's not something you could give if you're in this building state, because you're putting that energy towards your own self, your own future, your own goals, which I would argue are so much more important than another person who's not connected to you by blood, or you're not even a friend to that person. But even then, is there anyone that's more important than you? As long as you don't approach it from like a selfish, harmful perspective, there really is nobody more important than you. And that comes in the sense of your priority in life. There's no one more important than you, but you should not dismiss your moral responsibilities and your moral code based on this. But so for example, you give attention to your parents, you know, they've helped raise you, and they've provided for you. And so I can't dismiss that even while I'm working. Like if I'm working on something, if there's an event happening, but I need to be with my parents for some certain event that is serious and non-negotiable. Like, I don't know, maybe one of them has a surgery or something somehow, I don't know. God forbid is what I said. Maybe one of them has a surgery, God forbid, and like I can't dip on them for like a work event or a career event. I can't. You know, there's lines, there's boundaries. But other than those boundaries, you are the only person in your life. Okay? You're the only one that's gonna be here like 10 years from now. 10 years from now, your friends may not be there. Your lover might not be there. But who's gonna be there? You. No one else. So you're very important, and so it's very important to reach this built state, because before you reach it, you're kind of in this unbuilt phase. Like, it kind of impacts the way you interact with people as well. I feel kind of incompetent. I feel like I'm not kind of good enough to talk to these people, or to talk to anybody in like a romantic sense, you know, not in like a friendship sense. But I mean in like a romantic sense, I feel like I'm not you know, at the stage where I could give back, you know, because I'm not where I want to be. I can't give a guy energy and focus when I'm not where I want to be. Like, it just doesn't work that way for me. I need to make myself proud before I can take on anyone else in a serious, committed sense. I can't take on anyone when I haven't reached the place where I want to reach. Okay, enough of the unbuilt state. We'll talk about the non-committal state. The non-committal state, I mean this in the sense that you can't just go around being like, okay, let's go on a few dates, whatever, and you don't take it seriously. Like, you don't have serious views about the person, you're just going on dates for the fun of it. And also, like, dating without the purpose of marriage, without the purpose of something deeper. There's a rule, personal rule of mine, is like, you only give that person like a few dates. Okay? By the third or fifth date, you're already gonna know if you want this person or not. If you want this person in your life, you know, permanently or not. And if the answer is no, then you're just playing around with the person and you're leading them on. Now, while I'm saying this, you must be thinking like, oh my god, Maneem, you're so good at, you know, like, dealing with people, and you're so, like, good with dealing with romantic relationships. I'm not, you know, I don't mean to sound like a hypocrite. I'm actually kind of atrocious, and I'm in my own relationship problems currently, right? But I'm trying to talk us out of this scenario that we're in, where we're just kind of falling in with people that we don't see ourselves being with long term, and we're just doing it for fun, or we give in to desires that, you know, that are quite shallow and not long term. They're not soul fulfilling, and they might be bad for us and unhealthy, like I noted, and we still give in to them because they're the desires, you know. But it's a fight. You try to remind yourself, and by reminding others, you're reminding yourself. Okay, so let's get this clear. I'm not a perfect, like, what is it, paradigm? No, I'm not a perfect, like, example. I am not a perfect, like, idol of perfection. You know, I am not a god. I have a lot of my own problems. So yeah. That's for the romantic relationships. I'll get talking about, like, specifically from, like, a male and female perspective in a heterosexual relationship in another section, when we're done with this section, the one that goes for both people. Alright, so second point, lack of focus on clear goal / doing too much all at once. What I mean by this is you're kind of living your life kind of on autopilot. Okay, I believe we were at the lack of focus on clear goals / doing too much all at once point, and I wanted to describe what that would look like, and that looks like you going on autopilot all the time and over focusing on unnecessary things, over focusing on the current things instead of the goals that you're working towards. In my case, for example, it would be over focusing on university versus my long-term goals, which, like, I can still focus on university while maintaining, like, priority over my long-term goals. And how do you combat this? First point is start a vision board. For a vision board, you want to download Pinterest and use Pinterest, and you just search up things that you would want in your life, that you want your life to become. In the built state we were mentioning, the already built state we were mentioning in the previous point, that's the state you want to be in. So compile a bunch of images for that state. And a second point would be to write your vision. Now, I can go into this. If you don't know what your vision looks like, if you don't know what your long-term goal is, what your clear goal is, I could go into a different video about that. If you want it, though, I don't know what your situation is. Write down in the comments below if you want to see that or not, because there's a couple of ways for you to understand what you want out of life. And right now I'm just talking about how to remind yourself of what you want in life. So we're going with the assumption that you already know what you want and you're just kind of lacking the focus. And for that, I would tell you to write your vision. You might have it on like a piece of paper, but I prefer you have it on your notes app on your phone, because I want you to reread it every time you feel yourself kind of unfocusing. And theoretically, the best case scenario is where you read your vision note, or you see your vision board every morning and night. And this is kind of a manifestation technique, and I'm going to talk about manifestation in that sense, because some of you might be turned off by that, but it's not like manifestation. It is also that, but also it's about brainwashing yourself. It's about reminding yourself what you want. So you need your vision board, you need your notes, because otherwise, with the rate at which things happen on a daily basis, so much happens in a single day, and you just need to remind yourself of what you want. And if you do that every morning, every night, you're just gonna have it like brainwash. You're gonna program your brain to focus on it, so that you wouldn't have to remind yourself so often, because your brain would just hold it in. Do you know what I mean? So that's why I want you to do it on your notes app instead of on a physical paper, so that you can constantly remind yourself whenever you want. And you should also have certain affirmations that remind you of your goal. So, like, let's say part of your vision, you want to be like a confident person. The way to become confident is actually mostly through self-talk. Because it's a mental thing, and it's a great blessing to have your problems be mental, because everything mental can be fixed because it's in your head, so you can go into your head and kind of fix it. And so if you want to become more confident, you would have certain affirmations to repeat to brainwash yourself into becoming more confident. So you would be like, oh, I am a beautiful woman, I am a beautiful guy, I don't know who you are right now, but I am a beautiful person, I'm smart, I'm doing this. Another point on confidence, just completely tangentially, is confidence is about 90% the work before that point of time. You know, like if I'm feeling unconfident about like when I'm gonna go on stage and I feel kind of not confident, maybe it's because I didn't put in enough enough hours into practice. Maybe I didn't pay attention to what I was eating, so my skin kind of got crazy and I have a pimple and I feel kind of self-conscious about that. That's because it's like about the steps before it. You know, confidence isn't like a thing right now, it's something that you build up. It's a muscle. There's a TED talk about confidence is a muscle, and you could watch that if you want more information. Anyways, what else you can meditate. You can meditate. This is a big deal. In addition to reading your vision and like scrolling through your vision board on Pinterest, you can meditate on the future you want whenever you feel overwhelmed, or whenever you have a single moment to yourself where you can focus on yourself and you want to remind yourself. You just go. To meditate on it means to visualize it, by the way. To like visualize a certain scene which you want to be in, which you want to live in. And not only does that remind you of where you want to be and help you interact better with the world around you, it also calms you down, it soothes you, and you can interact with your daily life better. So for example, if I want to be a big time director, okay, and right now I have this barista job, and I'm just doing that to get money to like survive, and I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling kind of sad. I feel kind of worried because I'm not doing the thing that I want to do, that I'm meant to do, which is directing movies. How do I calm down in the middle of like a shift? How do I calm down? Well, I would go to the bathroom and I would meditate on this scene of me behind the camera. Okay, close your eyes with me. You behind the camera. You directing the actors, directing the cameraman, pointing the camera. I don't know what directors do. So you're doing all of that, and in that bathroom break, you kind of calm down, you soothe, and you remind yourself of where you're supposed to go and where you are going if you put in the work after your barista shift. So when your shift is over, you go, you grab your phone, you grab your 3-axis gimbal thing, and you go and start directing stuff, okay? After you concluded this short-term thing, which is just a means to get the money to do the purpose thing, to do your purpose, which is to direct movies. So you can meditate in like the bathroom or just like a moment. It literally takes like 1 minute, and you'll just feel better. You'll feel more concentrated. You'll feel calmer, and it also helps when you're interacting with customers or other people that make you mad. Okay, we're done with that point. I'm out of breath. I talk too much. My breath kind of gives out. I try to practice it, but I forgot how to pace myself. Okay. What do we have? We have another energy drainer, which is fear and uncertainty. Okay, how do we control fear and uncertainty? Well, for fear, this is something I realized today. Knowledge quiets fear. So what do I mean by that? I mean today, while I was walking out in the desert, just in the middle of nowhere, I have no knowledge about desert animals, about desert insects. So while I was walking, I saw this freaky insect thing. It looked like a beetle. It scared me. It did not look threatening, but it scared me. You know why it scared me? Because I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know what it wanted. I didn't know if it could fly, and it looks creepy. It just looks creepy. So when I was running away from it, not actively running, I was like, kind of like, and then just walking away. And while I was walking away, I spotted a dragonfly, and I remembered that dragonflies don't have stingers. They don't have stingers, and the reason I know that they don't have stingers and that they're largely non-threatening is because I learned some things about dragonflies, so I didn't feel any immediate fear towards the dragonfly other than like, dragonfly. And then I was like, oh, they don't have a stinger. They're not a wasp or a bee. They're kind of just chilling, so I can interact calmly with the situation. I can navigate the situation calmly. So knowledge quiets fear. The more you understand of the thing that you fear, the more you understand of it. The more you understand how it functions. The more you understand of the certain thing you're doing, whatever risk you're taking right now, the more you understand it, the less you fear it. Like if you're investing in like the stock market or something, if you're kind of getting scared and like the risk, you research more about the company. You research its CEO, you look up its financial reports, you read this, and you educate yourself on what this is, and then the knowledge of that quiets your fear. Okay, I hope I explained that point correctly. Second thing for fear and uncertainty is prayer. Guys, you really need to you need to lock in to your spirituality, because I mean, I personally believe in God, you know, so I feel like just like the more you talk to God, the more you kind of just pray to God, the less scared you would be, because you surrender your will to something greater than you surrender your will to the creator, the divine being, and it's like, well, you know, as long as I'm like talking to the divine being. How do I explain this? I feel silly. Let's just say prayer and then move on. Okay, prayer. And now I want to talk about another point. Overthinking and self-doubt. So, self-doubt exists for a reason. I want you to think about self-doubt like objectively. I want you, like, you can't do it while you're doubting yourself, but in a state when you're not doubting yourself, I want you to analyze self-doubt. I want you to realize that self-doubt is a response. It's kind of an emotion in response to something, you know? It's like your emotions aren't inherently negative. They just tell you about your own self, about your own mental state, about what triggers you in a certain way. So, for example, envy. Envy is not a negative trait. It tells you what you want. You know, it only becomes a negative emotion when you let it become a trait. When you're envious and you wish ill for other people and you wish harm for them or you sabotage them, then it becomes negative. Those actions are negative. But the emotion itself is not inherently negative. The emotion actually tells you what you want out of life, and this can help you with figuring out your vision if you don't have that in mind. It's like if I was envious of a girl who had like a good body, well, then I would be like, oh, I should go work out more. Instead of wishing her ill will or something, like I'm just kind of getting the benefit from it. I'm getting the benefit of the emotion. I'm getting what it's trying to tell me and I'm applying it to my life. The same is for self-doubt. If you're doubting your ability as a director, okay, let's go back to the barista guy. The barista guy wants to be a director. What if he's suffering self-doubt? You know, he doesn't know if he's gonna make it as a director. Okay. What's his fallback plan? What's his fallback plan? Like, what is he gonna do? It's a good idea to have a few plans in mind if you're pursuing a creative thing, personally. Some people might disagree with that, and that's fine. I feel like some people just have a different approach to life, but this is my own singular approach to my own life. And for me, like, when I think about that, like, what is my other plan? Well, the barista guy, like, if he if he locks in, he could become like the manager of the cafe thing. If he works at a chain of cafes, like a Starbucks or something like that, he could probably make it to middle management or something like that. And that might not make him as happy as the directing. But there's another thing he can use his directing abilities and passion for, which is managing. Because at the end of the day, a director, what does he do? He like manages people, right? He manages people to complete a project, which is the film. So in that sense, he can use his skill and his talent in doing that. And I'm not saying that that's the desirable plan, but it is a way for him to rationalize what will he do for money and things like that if the directing thing doesn't pan out. It's, I don't know, management, something else. I think the example is falling apart, so I'm going to use my own example here. Sometimes maybe I feel a little doubtful of my own literature and my own ability as a writer. Well, for me, I am also passionate about the planet and the environment, and I'm really passionate about like nature. So, but not to the extent that I'm passionate about literature and things like that. So if the literature doesn't work out, I can kind of exit, kind of wallow and go and grieve, and then just go into like, I don't know, like a park ranger or like a manager at some like biotech company. I don't know. But these are the plans. I do know, I'm just not trying to say it out loud because I'm keeping it private, okay? I'm just saying I don't know for the sake of privacy. So what I'm saying is I have a fallback plan. So if my literature doesn't work, I can go somewhere else, and that's fine. And this, for me, kind of cures my self-doubt because I know what I can do. If that option doesn't work, and then you have option B, option C, etc., and that works for me. But that's all that self-doubt is useful for. If you start doubting yourself constantly about things that are kind of outside your control, like, oh, what if I don't make it? And you already like did a plan, like a fallback plan and everything, fallback plan, and you did everything, and then you're like, well, you're just like, oh, what if I don't make it? What if I don't make it? What if I don't make it? Eliminate that. That's not helpful to you. It drains your energy. It's not useful in the current sense. Cool. So let's talk about overthinking. How do you combat overthinking? Because overthinking is also another energy drainer, because It puts so much energy, so much stamina, like actual energy, like you waking up, you have a certain amount of energy you get from when you sleep and things like that, and that goes away. So you have to use that energy carefully. So overthinking expends a lot of energy, expends a lot of nutrition and brain power. So to combat this, I would recommend thinking with a notebook and a pen, and that kind of helps you like clarify your thoughts. It helps make sure that your thoughts are consistent, like they're making sense, they're coherent, they're logical, they're following a step-by-step order, so that you don't get into like overthinking about like, oh, I'm worried about this, and then what if that happens like 2 years later, and then you go back to like that point and you're just jumping all over the place. Like your brain is kind of jumping from one possibility to another possibility, like you're thinking about things 10 years from now. Calm down. Notebook and pen, write down your worries, try to figure them out, and be compassionate to yourself. And if you aren't into the notebook idea, there's also Canva. You can use a whiteboard. They have like a whiteboard feature in which you can do like a bunch of squares, and you can use like arrows that come out of the squares and then they go into another square. And that's like super helpful for like seeing the way you think, especially if you're stuck in a loop of overthinking over a single thing. It's super helpful to just like draw it out, even on paper, not necessarily on Canva, but like if you draw it out, you can kind of pinpoint where the cycle starts again, and you can interrupt it by a different thought process. So that's that for that. Oh, I forgot to mention unhealthy friendships near the romantic relationships part. Unhealthy friendships, those are a big energy drainer because they're just as bad as romantic relationships. So how do we combat this? First of all, recognize that it's a unhealthy friendship. Okay, don't be blind to it. Recognize. Number 2, tell them what you don't like, what's causing this unhealthiness. If it's a fixable thing, like them overstepping on your boundaries. Like I remember once this girl, she came late to like a hangout thing with me, and I kept joking with her. I was like, haha, you were late with me, and it's like, oh, that's how you relate, da da da, and I kept like repeating it over and over again. And eventually she was like, Raheem, can you not talk about this anymore? I told you that I came late because of a certain situation that she couldn't help, it was like an emergency situation. And she was like, can you not talk about it anymore? It's not funny. And I was like, oh, yeah, no, definitely, and I felt a little offended, but that was because it was my own fault. That's my own fault for stepping on her boundary. But what she did is she communicated with me, and she told me that it was a boundary and that she didn't appreciate my jokes. And that's what you should do with your friendship if it's a fixable thing like stepping on the boundaries. However, there are some people that just have inherent qualities within them that are completely unalterable. I'm talking like people that have such a deep-rooted, like, what would you even call it? It's like just being a rotten person, just having that inherent rottenness within you, that rots within you. It's and they're like, you try to talk to them out of it. You try to talk them out of it, but it doesn't work. And they're just oblivious to it, and they don't think it's a problem. They're not working on it. I'm talking like people that gossip all the time, people that don't do anything with their lives, people that just sit around and play video games, and they don't do anything productive. And you keep telling them, hey, I think maybe you should do something. You should like get out of this. You should start a business. You should get a job. You should do this, that. And they're like, no, there's nothing wrong with me. Well, in that case, you just leave. Explain why you're leaving, because maybe that'll snap something in their brain. But other than that, just leave. Like, honestly, I have no time for this. Like, as a person, I don't have any time for people that don't care about their own lives, because I'm trying to build something in my own life, and I need people that support me and that I support back so that we don't fall. I can't deal with a person that's not working towards their goals because I just can't. I don't have time. I don't have energy to sit around gossiping and falling into like old patterns. Like there are girls out there that like their whole personality trait is like, oh, I'm dating this guy, I'm dating that guy, I'm dating this guy. Cool, cool. Can we get into like what you're doing for your career? Question mark. Anyways, another energy drainer. Feel bad media. And that's shows showcasing bad stuff about people and just sad situations. Like, I don't know, the Joker. Like, I don't need to cry. Any sad movie, do you need to cry? You don't. There's already a lot of like sadness in life, and I don't believe that you're gonna benefit from a movie like that. It's just gonna make you feel bad. It's gonna make you feel bad. It's gonna make you feel gross. If it's like a like, oh my god, I used to do this all the time. It used to be like serial murderer media. I don't know if you're supposed to say killer on YouTube, but like I used to watch a lot of serial killer media, and it used to like really bother me, used to disturb me, but I kept doing it anyways. And it's like, hello, you don't have to. You don't have to drain yourself, you know? And I got out of it. It takes a long time to get out of it, but you do eventually, and you have to recognize that it's for the best that you get out of this situation, because it's just draining your energy, it's taking your time away, and it just makes you feel awful. So a lot of examples like serial killer media, just movies that make you feel bad. They just make you feel bad. Like don't like, it just drains energy. It really, like, you know what, if you disagree with me, explain yourself in the comments. Like why is it like, I remember people talking about like Arcane, like that show, and how sad it is, and it's like, why do you want to be sad? Why do you want to cry? Like I have places to be. Why do I want to cry? I don't want to cry. I don't want to cry. I have things to work on. Okay. And what else? Angry news that make you angry, and depressing documentaries. You don't need this low vibrational stuff, okay? You don't need it. And you're like, oh no, Raheem, I need to be informed. No, you don't. Oh my god, I swear, I promise you, you never need to be informed. When I was completely plugged off from social media and news and everything, like I still knew what was happening, because there's so many people that are plugged into the internet that can tell you what's happening. And when they tell you, you form a bond with them, you get closer to them, and it just feels more like human. And when it comes from their words, it can come off less angry, it can come off less sensational, because they're not trying to anger you, they're not trying to get your views and your clicks, they're just trying to communicate. So trust me, even when you're completely off of news and all of that media, you're not going to miss out. People are going to tell you what's happening, you know, and they're going to tell it to you, and it's going to build like a little bond moment between you guys. And another solution, because this kind of media, it infiltrates your mind, it infiltrates your thoughts, and it changes the way you think about life. And what helped me, oh my god, this was crazy. Landon's video, I mentioned it before, he said this. He was like, your thoughts are things that float in a river. You can pick what things you want from this river, you can fish it out. So you don't have to choose every thought that comes down the river. You're not every thought that you have. And not only can you choose what thoughts to concentrate on, you can also change what thoughts flow into the river. So you're going to have a lot of negative thoughts, a lot of dirty thoughts, a lot of sad thoughts if all you do is consume feel-bad media. And that's going to make your options for choosing thoughts that you want to concentrate on less palatable and less like something you want to do. But you can replace the flow of the media, you can change the flow of the river by consuming sweeter, softer media, wholesome media. I'm talking like classics, like books that aren't 21st century, books that are talking about moral systems, books even from the 21st century that just focus on I don't know, like positive themes, like good versus evil, stuff like that. And you just have to flow goodness. You have to choose goodness. You have to make it flow into your river instead of the bad. And the more your river just brings in beautiful, positive thoughts, the more, if you want, you can consume this like morally gray anti-hero media, and you'll be fine because you already have the good bases kind of downloaded in your brain. Contentious issue, and if you have beef with it, explain yourself in the comments. Another part, I'm going to take a break for this one because I'm out of breath, literally. This is my final point for the energy drainers that apply for both genders, for both people. It's social media. The amount of thoughts that aren't yours that are flowing in your river are crazy. Do you know that none of that is your own? Like, if you're plugged into social media constantly, about like 90% of your thoughts aren't yours. Like, you're thinking about, oh, what this latest singer has done, oh, what this latest celebrity has done. You're thinking about your friend's post, you're thinking about that funny TikTok you saw, you're thinking about this, or you're thinking about that, and you're starting to absorb social media's opinions. You're starting to absorb what people's, you're starting to absorb their consciousness in a way. Like, none of that is you. Literally none of that is you. And you're just absorbing it, and that drains your energy because you're not listening to yourself. You're not letting your energy speak. You're not letting it do anything. You're not letting it express itself, essentially, because you're expressing other people's opinions. Kind of tangential, but like, I see a lot of, like, for example, girls, and I see the same bags, the same shoes repeat with them, and I'm like, gosh, like, what, is there like a memo I missed? Like, I don't know, I just feel like it's really funny how in comparison to me, who's like, I'm completely disconnected other than like me uploading my own stuff. I don't dress like most people. I don't act the way that most people do because I listen to my own energy. I don't absorb other people's energies and other people's thoughts and opinions. So the way I look is kind of more different. And the way I dress, things like that, because I tune into what I want. Do you know what I mean? Okay. Tangential point. Anyways, it's not just the thoughts that aren't yours, the opinions that aren't yours. It's also the overstimulating images, audios, and like the blaring text. All of that also drains you because it drains your concentration. Like, the amount of energy you're losing, the amount of concentration, attention span you're losing because of, funny TikTok, haha. It's crazy. It literally drains your energy, it drains your attention, it drains your concentration, it drains time. It's such a time sink. I will say this right now, there's absolutely no reason for you, if you're not uploading on social media, for you to be on social media. You can tell because it's a different angle. I was triggered. I was personally triggered by that conversation, so I cut a little bit off. I cut all of it off because I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, oh shit. I was like, it's like a little bit too personal. So what I meant to say is, yes, you will feel lonely when you unplug from social media, when you unplug from this media and you just stay alone. It will feel lonely, but you'll be okay because you can form real life connections and you'll be happier in the long term with real connections as opposed to the social media constantly texting, replying to stories and things like that. And when you're unplugged from social media, you'll understand how ridiculous like the concept of like stories and that kind of stuff, it's a little ridiculous. You'll understand why texting is like a really bad way of communication. Like, even letters are better for communication and emails and stuff like that as opposed to like texting, because texting is like not a full conversation. It's always a conversation halted in half by like another person being busy and things like that, and it keeps you addicted and it keeps you locked in to like constantly checking your messages because the conversation didn't actually reach a natural conclusion. It only ended because somebody was busy or something like that. And this is completely different to how us as humans converse face to face and in letters, because in letters it's a full thought, it's a report, it's like a report. It is essentially a report to another person. And I feel like the art of communicating long distance has been lost because of texting, which is really a bad way of communicating. That's all I wanted to say for this part. I decided that I'm not gonna record the female energy drainers and the male energy drainers because I actually felt kind of uncomfortable talking about that. I was like, it's a little bit too personal and like a little bit too like improper. So I was like, I'm not gonna talk about it. But what I said in the beginning of the romantic relationships thing, I think it stands, and it's a perfect thing to point to for energy drainers, and I feel like I expanded on that perfectly. And I will say that when you're in this unhealthy relationship, it's usually because you have low self-worth, or you depend on another person for their own validation, their own approval. And the way to combat this, whether you're a female or a guy or whatever, is you repeat to yourself affirmations. You list your own accomplishments and traits about yourself that you like, and you repeat them to yourself. You give yourself the compliments that you want to hear from other people, and that takes away the power that other people have over you, because you're complimenting yourself, and you're the one that gives yourself that kind of satisfaction, that happiness of being complimented, instead of relying on it from other people. And this takes the power away from them, and it makes you stop putting up with bad behavior just for the sake of feeling like you're being loved. Because if you love yourself, then there's no reason why you should bear ill treatment from other people. And that's it for the megalith video. Subscribe, please. And I also stopped posting solely poetry and literature on my TikTok and Instagram, and sometimes I post like philosophy tidbits here and there, and I post a few jokes, and it's more of a comprehensive experience rather than solely literature as it used to be. And the reason I tell you to subscribe and follow my social media, because I don't like being opaque, I want to be transparent, is unfortunately in the industry and in any industry, they usually quantify your worth and what potential you have as a creative or a writer or whatever by the amount of followers you have. Unfortunately, it's true for a lot of creative fields, like modeling as well, I assume. And having like a large following and like huge engagement and things like that, it scores better with these executives, with these office people. And gone are the days of you showing up to, I don't know, to a literary agent and going, hey, I have a good story. And they read your story and they're like, that's good, let's sell it, it has a market, we can do it. Now there's like an added thing of how many followers do you have? And it's not an essential thing. You don't have to have it, but it helps. It helps a lot. That's why I'm asking you to subscribe and follow my social media. And I just feel like a fake kind of person if I don't tell you why I'm telling you to do that, alright? And if you don't want to subscribe and follow or whatever, it's fine. Don't. But I'm asking you and telling you why. I don't know if that's a negative thing. I'm just being honest. Bye. This has been Yay Raneem. I remember watching this other Gen Z YouTuber, and for no reason at the end of his video, he just went. And I was like, okay, Gen Z behavior, I guess. So here's me mogging. and follow me. Thank you.